DC The Voice, Alabama Prisoner Profiles. What's going on with y'all, man? Make sure y'all like, sub, share the video, comment on the video, donate to the Cash App and PayPal platforms in the description if you're feeling generous, man. Want to give a shout out to John for the dub donation on Cash App, man. I appreciate you, man. Y'all be coming through at the clutchest times, man. The platform appreciates it. Everlasting gratitude. Speaking of money, I didn't talk to you, but I got a call Friday afternoon from DOC. It's an inmate. He had a crazy name. I'm like, what's your name? He's like, who? I'm like, who this is? Like, it's 223 with a switch. All right, well, it's 223 with a switch, man. I'm like, oh, what's up? He's like, hey, the passcode is, and proceeds to spell out my mother's first name. I'm like, this gotta be bro trying to get a message to me. Dude's like, yeah, I'm a runner for, you know what I'm saying, orderly or whatever. And bro gave me your number and told me to come out here and, call you, see if you'll send him $20. So I laughed. I said, bro, the red, mind you, we ain't rehearsed nothing like that. So I'll probably only do that like one more time without talking, bro, because I know motherfuckers be trying to finesse. But yeah, man, the prisoner ingenuity on display, bro. It's still been locked up, but dude told me he was classified to go to work release, and he's just sitting there until they decide to move him, man. Now today, we have the state's 5th execution of the year, 2nd execution within 38 days, man. State up 5 hats, man. Let's hop right into that right now. Alabama death row inmate Derrick Dearman, who was convicted in the 2016 slayings of 5 people with an axe and 2 guns, was put to death Thursday night by lethal injection. He had given up his appeals earlier this year and volunteered to have his execution date set. Dearman, 36, put to death in Alabama's execution chamber at William C. Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama, is the 5th execution Alabama has carried out in 2024 and the 2nd in less than a month. The victims were all related. One of the victims was pregnant. The curtain to the execution chamber viewing room opened at 5:53 p.m. It closed at 6:08 p.m. Dearman's official time of death was 6:14 p.m. At 5:55 p.m., the prison warden asked if he had any final words. Dearman's last words were, quote, "To the victim's family, forgive me. This is not for me, this is for you. I've taken so much. To my family, y'all already know I love you." Several other words were inaudible. Dearman also appeared to speak after the execution process began and the drugs were flowing, but his words were inaudible to the viewing rooms. At 6 p.m., Dearman briefly lifted his head off of the gurney and spoke, which was again inaudible. A correctional officer performed a consciousness check by yelling Dearman's name, pinching his arm, and flicking his eyelid at 6:02 p.m. Dearman briefly moved his arm after the pinch. He appeared to stop breathing at 6:04 p.m. The execution. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey told Alabama Department of Corrections Commissioner John Hamm that she would not exercise her clemency powers in the case and directed him to proceed with Dearman's execution, according to a statement from Ivey. Quote, "6 lives, including an unborn baby, were gruesomely taken by Mr. Dearman in 2016, Ivey stated. Quote, "I'm using an axe and then a gun, he clearly made the decision to kill. Then he made the clear decision to flee his hometown to Mississippi. And now He himself has clearly stated his guilt and asked to move forward with his death sentence. The state has obliged, and justice has been served. I pray for the loved ones of all these victims whose lives were taken far too soon." Unquote. Following the execution, Ham told reporters gathered at Prison Media Center that Dearman's arm movement was, quote, "not a sign of consciousness," unquote. Ham said the minutes before the execution began, Dearman asked that his spiritual advisor, Reverend Jeff Hood, not be present in the execution chamber. Hood was then escorted off the property. The commissioner then read a statement from Bryant Henry Randall, the father of Chelsea Randall Reed and brother of Shannon Randall Reed and Robert Lee Brown. Quote, "There are no words to express how this whole ordeal has impacted my life. I'll never forget the day I've got the news when my wife uttered the words. They were all unalive. My body trembled with every feeling imaginable. The biggest thing that bothered me was not being able to tell all of them a simple word. Goodbye. Today, goodbye will be easy for many because we have all heard the horrific things that Derrick Dearman did to all the innocent individuals that he unalived. Whether it was drugs or just pure hate and the devil in his heart, Dearman will get a final goodbye, whereas I'm still awaiting mine." Quote, "I would have loved for my sister to watch her children grow up and their accomplishments, or my brother to watch his son grow up as well, but I was stripped in many ways of happiness and the bond of a family by this senseless act." Several family members of the victims attended the press conference. One took the podium to speak. Others remained emotional in the back of the media room. Robert Brown said, quote, "I can't imagine any more than the screaming that I did that night. This don't bring nothing back. I can't get my son back or any of them back. All this evil going on in this world, this is just a sample of what's going on. And if we don't change, the Lord's coming back." He believed Dearman was off drugs and, quote, realized what he'd done. "Let this be a warning to somebody for a change. This don't bring no closure to us. We're going to suffer the rest of our lives," unquote. Dearman's final hours. An Alabama Department of Corrections spokesperson on Thursday afternoon released Dearman's activity for his last 2 days on Earth. On Wednesday, Dearman was visited by Reverend Hood, his spiritual advisor, his father, and his sister. He was seen eating grits, biscuits, jelly, eggs, brown gravy, and a cheeseburger. Seen drinking Dr. Pepper and raspberry tea. For dinner that night, he ate chicken and cabbage with cornbread and peas. He talked on the phone with his father, sister, 2 friends, and spiritual advisor. On Thursday, Dearman was visited by a friend, his father, 2 of his sons, his brother-in-law, and his sister. He didn't have any phone calls. Dearman ate his breakfast of oatmeal, eggs, 3 biscuits, brown gravy, and orange juice. He had a lunch of macaroni salad, cornbread, mixed vegetables, corn, potatoes, green beans, carrots, and a sloppy joe. His final meal was a seafood platter brought in from a local restaurant. He had 5 witnesses planning to witness his execution: his father, sister, brother-in-law, and 2 friends. After the curtain closed, his family erupted in sobs. Quote, Derrick, no, his father wailed. Hood, the spiritual advisor, told AL.com, a prison worker informed him that Dearman didn't want him in the chamber. Quote, basically he got to a point where he said, I got it. He said he was Jesus Christ and he didn't need a spiritual advisor. I don't know if they got that quote wrong or what. Hood said Dearman's behavior was erratic, saying he, quote, spiraled so much from the time I've known him with drugs and mental illness. He believed Dearman was using drugs as recently as Wednesday. Dearman had a, quote, major addiction, Hood said. Giving up appeals. Dearman had opted to die by the state's 3-drug lethal cocktail, and he gave up his appeals earlier this year. Quote, I am willingly giving all that I can possibly give to try and repay a small portion of my debt to society for the terrible things that I have done, Dearman said in a statement released earlier this week by his spiritual advisor. Quote, from this point forward, I hope that the focus will not be on me, but rather on the healing of all the people I have hurt. In April, Dearman fired his attorneys from the Equal Justice Initiative and opted to end his appeals. He spoke to AL.com about his mindset at the time. Quote, I am guilty, plain and simple, unquote, he said in a telephone interview. Quote, everybody's trying to talk me out of it, unquote, he said. Quote, but I feel in my heart this is the right thing to do. The unalivings. Dearman was sent to death row in 2018 for the brutal slayings of 5 family members of his then-girlfriend in Central Alabama in 2016. Victims were Joseph Turner, Robert Brown, Chelsea Reed, Justin Reed, Shannon Randall. Oh, goodness. Chelsea Reed was pregnant with her and Justin Reed's first child. Turner and Randall had a 3-month-old son in the bed with them when they were attacked, but he was unharmed. After attacking his victims with an axe and then shooting them, Dearman forced his unharmed girlfriend, Lanita Lester, into a car along with 3-month-old boy, drove them to Mississippi. Their girlfriend and baby were later released. According to court records, Dearman was abusive to Lester, his girlfriend. The day before the murders, Turner picked her up and brought her to his home. Dearman showed up multiple times to the Central home that night, but no one would allow him inside the house. Early the next morning, Dearman returned. Court records state he picked an axe up from the yard, broke into the home, and attacked everyone inside except for the infant and his girlfriend. After the ambush, Dearman forced Lester and the baby boy into a car and took them to a family member's house in Mississippi. Soon after, their girlfriend and baby returned to South Alabama unharmed in the car. Dearman turned himself into authorities the following day. A post on the Equal Justice Initiative website. The legal nonprofit whom Dearman fired this spring said on the day of the slayings, Dearman, quote, had been hearing voices, believed that people were after him, and had used a large amount of methamphetamine and had not slept for a week. After firing his attorneys this spring, Dearman said he wasn't seeking an imminent death date. Quote, I mean, who wants to say, you know what? Just come and kill me. Nobody wants to die, he said at the time. Dearman wrote a letter to the Alabama Attorney General's office expressing frustration that other men were set before execution before him. Quote, I've done everything that is required to drop my appeals and have my sentence carried out, and I am competent and of a sound mind. Can you please respond to this letter to let me know what the holdup is? He wrote in the August letter, all of this is hard, not only me, but on my family, and the longer it takes, the more me and my family have to go through, unquote. Dearman's former attorney had argued in court records he was severely mentally ill at the time of the crime. Dearman himself said that his mind wasn't right at the time. Doesn't mean he doesn't know what happened, he told AL.com. Quote, I remember every bit of it, Dearman said through the fuzzy audio at Holman Correctional Facility. It's the prison where most Alabama death row inmates are housed and the only one in the state with an execution chamber. Quote, it was like someone else had the steering wheel. It was like being at the movie theater or watching a movie you want to turn your head or close your eyes because you didn't want to see that part or that scene because it was scary or horrible and not being able to. It's like someone else had the wheel, Dearman said. He was the 5th person Alabama executed in 2024. Dearman also is the first inmate since 2013 to be executed after spending less than a decade on Alabama's death row. The Equal Justice Initiative wrote online, quote, Derrick Dearman stopped his appeals only after a lifetime of severe mental illness and suicidal behavior that Alabama courts have repeatedly ignored. The state of Alabama now plans to execute him despite serious questions about the constitutionality of his conviction and death sentence. After Dearman's execution, there are now 161 inmates on Alabama's death row, including 5 women.
Derrick, tell us what happened. feel right now for these families?
There's no words to express.
Why did you go to the house?
Drugs make you think things. It's not for they're having happen.
What kind of drugs
were
are you
you
on?
That's what it is. That's all I gotta say. Sorry. Family.
Who are you apologizing to?
Legal that's
Did you know them?
Were these your friends?
Yeah.
You're saying you did this because of drugs?
Yeah.
Now you're going to stand before a judge. You're facing 6 charges. Do you deserve to live?
No.
Last chance. You'll never get to speak to the media possibly ever again.
Sorry. Don't do drugs.
And there y'all have it, man. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments section, man. First off, again, condolences to the victims of his case and their families, man. Damn, I wonder why he didn't want Rev in there, bro. Must knew where he was going. Like, watch out, Rev. You don't need to be here for this shit finna get ugly when I sin or descend. But hopefully, bro, repented and asked for his forgiveness of his sins, as it was evident, bro, was remorseful. In my opinion, asking the state to go ahead and execute you is the ultimate atonement of accountability, man. The crime's outrageous. Bro said he was geeked on meth. I believe, bro. Could have been going through psychosis or something like that, but the law don't recognize that shit as an affirmative defense for murder, man. Much less murdering family members. Even if he did flash just then, he still drove shouted to another state, you know what I'm saying, unharmed with the kid, let them folks go, and, you know, just more evidence to point that bro knew what he was doing, man. But yeah, man, let me know what y'all think, man. Like, sub, share, donate to the platform. Hit me up on any other socials, man. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Alabama Prisoner Profiles if you're trying to come on the show or you got something to say. DC The Voice, Alabama Prisoner Profiles.